real quick here, I did talk about D-Day very briefly, but we didn't talk about the strategy in the Pacific, the island hopping strategy, because the US, in order to fight Japan in the Pacific theater while the rest of us are fighting in Europe, is to go through the islands. The Pacific, if you are familiar with your geography, there is not as many large continents. So the Japanese have taken hold of a lot of islands in the Pacific. They've got Midway, they've taken over the Philippines. There's lots of other smaller islands whose names I can't think of but are no less important. But they've been conquered by the Japanese. And if you remember the video about how the Japanese treated the Chinese, you can imagine that things probably aren't great for these civilians who live on those islands. The US, Midway, that's one of them. The US is fighting in the Pacific with the Japanese to push them off of these islands. And the strategy that the US comes up with is called island hopping. And it is as simple as it sounds. Guadalcanal, that's another one. They are going to go island to island and fight the Japanese with the intent of pushing the Japanese off of these islands until they can push them back to mainland Japan. So, during the Pearl Harbor battle, the Japanese had taken out one battleship, but they missed our aircraft carriers, which is a bummer for us, right? We are going to meet the Japanese in many other battles, but when we meet them in the Battle of Midway, this is a huge turning point for the US because not only did the Japanese not sink our aircraft carriers or destroyers, but we sink all of their aircraft carriers. So the Japanese Zeros, who are the kamikaze dive bomber planes, do not have anywhere to take off in the middle of the Pacific anymore. So they have to use the islands. They cannot be out in the Pacific. And that allows us to take back the island of Midway. And we do go to the Philippines. And unfortunately, we have to abandon our military in the Philippines for a while. General Douglas MacArthur is famous for stating that he shall return, but we do leave the Marines in the Philippines for a little bit after the Battle of Bataan and the Battle of Corridor do not go well, and General Douglas MacArthur is forced to leave to go get reinforcements and deal with some other places. And while the Marines in the Philippines are left, they are taken as prisoners of war by the Japanese, and they are put on what is known as the Bataan Death March, where they are essentially forced to march through the Philippines in a death march. They are tortured, they are beaten. If they are lucky, they make it to a prisoner of war camp where they're not treated any better. But a lot of men die on the march because they are not treated as Geneva Convention prisoners of war. They are treated as enemies, and a lot of them are killed by the Japanese. There's also, again, other islands like Guadalcanal. My great aunt was a nurse on Guadalcanal. There's a video on this YouTube channel where she talks about her experience in Guadalcanal. It's a Pacific island. A lot of the atrocities that come from the battles in the Pacific, not only committed by the Japanese army or the Japanese military, but also just from tropical diseases and being in a place that you're unfamiliar with, where there's unfamiliar jungle and bugs and new diseases. So there's many reasons for American death, which may be part of what encourages Mr. Harry Truman to make the choice he makes later on when he has to decide what he wants to do to end the war. So island hopping is really a lot more complex than this, but this is a very basic overview of what it is. I probably should do more about it, but it is late and your test is tomorrow. So I am wrapping this up here, and maybe someday I'll come back and revisit this video. But if not, hopefully you got the main idea of island hopping, and apologies to any World War II veteran or family of the veteran who is out there and who's heard this is like, this is all wrong, you're all wrong. Sorry, I didn't do a better job with it. I'll do better next time. Yeah, that's it. I'll see you in the next video.